Hi guys, and welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. My name is Chantal Murphy, and in today's episode we're going to be talking a little bit about the dummy, how to ditch the dummy, when to ditch the dummy, and how to teach a little one to replace its own dummy through the night. So if you do find this information useful, please feel free to share it with another mum or a friend and enjoy the podcast. Okay guys, so in regards to the dummy, ideally if you want to offer your baby the dummy, generally the best time to do that is once your baby's around about 6 weeks of age. And the reason for this is because by this age, generally there's less opportunity for your little one to get nipple confusion. So for the first 6 weeks, you really want them to attach to the nipple or the bottle if you're doing it, the bottle, and it just needs to be, smooth, a smooth transition to feeding, because feeding obviously in the first few weeks is very important. Once they reach 6 weeks or beyond 6 weeks, you can definitely start to introduce a dummy. And that will help with little ones in particular with settling. Some babies have very strong sucking reflex when they're quite young, and the dummy is what helps them get through day and night, and that's quite important. And it just, a lot of babies just don't cope without that. So, and that's okay. Don't feel guilty for giving your baby a dummy. If it's what you need to do to get through, it's just what you need to do. If you decide to keep the dummy, you've got around about 6 months to decide that. So, between 6 weeks of age and 6 months is a bit of trial and error, whether or not you like it, whether or not you want to keep it, whether or not it works, whether or not your baby likes it. So you've got a few months of a bit of trial and error moment where you can decide whether or not it's what you like and it's what you want to continue doing. So if you want to keep the dummy, or if you're in a position where you're not quite sure what you want to do when it comes to the dummy, especially with sleeping, maybe just use it in times of need. So when you're out in the shops and your little one's having a bit of a tanty, or it's coming up to feed time and you're trying to string that feed time out a little bit, or at witching hour in the afternoon when they just need that comfort, use the dummy for moments like that and not necessarily sleep if you're a little bit mindful or a little bit hesitant to use the dummy for sleep. So you can still use the dummy and use it to your advantage, but not use it all the time. And your baby won't get confused as long as you're pretty consistent with your approach. Use it for times of need, but not times of sleep. It's going to be obviously a lot easier to ditch the dummy in that regards as your baby gets older. However, once your baby is at that 6 month mark and you've decided, okay, that's it, I'm keeping it, now you want to start teaching your baby to use the dummy and put the dummy in themselves. So, the best way to do that is by practice. Have your little one out during awake time, on the floor, doing tummy time, sitting up, and have a couple of dummies in front of them. And practice. Get them to put it in their hand, get them to fumble it around, get them to put it in their mouth. And anytime that they do that, give them lots of praise, give them lots of recognition. That will help. They will do anything for some more praise. So continue to do it over and over, because like I said, it's practice, it makes perfect. And through the night when you go in to give them their dummy, preferably not go in and just plug it straight back in their mouth, especially once they get to around about that 7-8 month mark, because they're certainly capable at this age of holding their own dummy and putting their own dummy back in. But you do need to give them a bit of a helping hand. So what I would advise at this point, if they wake up through the night after around about 8 months of age, is to go in and hand them the dummy put that dummy in their hand from you. So rather than you just putting it straight in their mouth. So they've got to do a little bit of the work. And because if you've done a lot of practice through the day, all that practice should start to pay off at, midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning. So you can certainly go in and help them, but don't do all the work for them when it comes to, that dummy. Another tip that I've got when it comes to the dummy is, if you've decided to keep it, is to attach it to a comforter. This is definitely by far my biggest tip. It's going to be a lot easier for your little one to find the dummy through the night if it is attached to a comforter. And if you've got 2 comforters, or in some cases you've got 3 comforters, attach 1 or 2 dummies to each comforter. And it's just so much easier for your little one to find that through the night. If you don't have a comforter, or you don't want to introduce a comforter, add more dummies in the cot. So it might be anywhere between 5 or 6 or 7 dummies in the cot at any one time. Glow in the dark ones are meant to be pretty good as well at the moment. They're pretty popular, so they might work as well. But my biggest tip is the comforter, and that's because when you decide to ditch the dummy, when you take that away, they've still got a little piece of comfort with them, because over the time that you've had that dummy attached to the comforter, over that time they've also bonded with the comforter. try not to ditch it before the age of 2.5 because they just don't understand what you're doing. If they're absolutely attached to it, ditching it before the age of 2.5 could really send you backwards and give you a lot of bedtime battles, and your little one could start to really regress come bedtime or through the night. So I would at this point wait. If you do have a bub that's quite attached to the dummy, I wouldn't advise ditching it before the age of 2.5. And when you do ditch it, make sure you've got a replacement for the dummy, and this is where that comforter plays a really big part. So if you've had a comforter from quite a young age, it's not going to be the end of the world if you take a little piece of the comforter away, which is the dummy, if you had the dummy attached, and the dummy's gone. But at night time, that particular night, they go to bed still with their comforter. Yes, their dummy's missing, but they've still got something that they're bonded with and they know and they're familiar with to go to bed that night. So, and when they are 2.5, they can comprehend, they can understand what you're trying to say, they can understand what you're trying to achieve, and you can have a little bit of a chat with them about it, and you can have a little bit of a reward system or, a system set up where you might talk to them about giving it to Santa if it's at Christmas time, or the Easter Bunny, or maybe another baby that might be coming into the family, or, another child, or, in some cases for older babies, children, toddlers at this stage, you can take them to the shops, get them to choose something that you're happy for them to have, and they pay with that for that toy or that doll or that whatever using their dummy, and they either give it to the lady at the checkout or they throw it in the bin at the checkout. And they know, they're old enough to know, and that night they go to bed, you can discuss it with them. Little Johnny, you bought your toy today, so there is no more dummy, but you've got your little lovey or you've got your little comforter, and you're a big boy now and you don't need your dummy anymore. So you can have those conversations once they're at that age of 2.5 at least. Anything under the age of 2.5, they're just really not going to comprehend. They probably will tell you and they'll nod their head that they understand, and they'll give you all those signs that, yep, I've got this. But at night time, when you try to put them to bed without the dummy, that's where the bedtime battles will probably begin, because what you said 5-6 hours ago, they just don't care anymore and they just don't really understand what that meant. So waiting till they're old enough is definitely going to help and work to your advantage in times of ditching that dummy. So I hope these few tips help everyone with their little ones who is got a dummy, who has a dummy, and just don't feel guilty to have the dummy. A lot of parents I meet and work with often feel really guilty for having the dummy. If it works for you, then don't worry about what everyone else thinks or says. It's your baby and it's your life, and you're the one parenting, and parenting's hard enough without worrying about what other people think about a dummy. So I hope these few tips help. Stay tuned for the next podcast, and feel free to tag a friend and share with a mum. Thanks guys, talk to you again soon.